enemy.
This is how I feel every time I do a Laci Green video.
Alright y'all, I have a provocative ass question. Are athletes more likely to rape?
See? Now the Diablo clip has some context. Continue, Laci.
There have been hundreds of cases in the news about high school, college, and pro athletes perpetrating sexual violence.
You know what I could also do? I could also say, and this wouldn't really address your point, though it would throw your premise into question, is that there have been hundreds of reports of college athletes being falsely accused of sexual assault and rape. And we could extend this to frat boys, although that's not really the topic at hand, now is it? So, that being said, there's a very interesting question we have to ask. If there are an equal number of reports of men being shown to be falsely accused of rape and sexual assault, then are athletes, then how could we then make the stretch that there's a correlation between rape and sports, if once again we've shown plenty of athletes have been falsely accused of doing so? I don't know. Bearing in mind that is what Laci is here to show us. Laci, continue.
Which begs the question, is there a connection between sexual violence and sports? Here's what the data says. Most men don't rape.
Well, come on. So, I'm sorry. This might be a little nitpicky here. But if you understand that most men don't rape, why then do you think you live in a culture of which one perpetuates rape or doesn't take rape seriously? If you know the vast majority of people with penises aren't raping. And I mean, of course, let's not even talk about the fact that we are only focusing on males here because women don't rape. Can't. Nope.
Roughly 1 in 10 guys will be a perpetrator.
Now, here's the thing. If you've been a long-time subscriber of mine, you know how I feel about statistics. You know, just summarize their lies, damn lies, and statistics. And one thing that I found to be interesting was someone in the comment section of Laci's original video said that, if I can quote them correctly, or maybe I should just read the comment. See if I can just go find it rather quickly. Here you go. Phil Smith says, most men don't rape. Roughly 1 in 10 guys will be a perpetrator. However, the source you linked, assuming it's credible, and I think it might be credible, if I remember correctly, it was the Sexual Assault Prevention, I'm not going to say coalition, but it was some college campus sexual assault prevention organization who did the study. If you think that's credible, take it as you will. To continue the comment, he says, assuming it's credible, refers to sexual assault. That is very dishonest of you to conflate sexual assault with rape. I hope it was just poor wording and not deliberate deception. But then again, I mean, this is Laci Green here, and I mean, I may not dislike most feminists, but there's no way around the fact that I dislike Laci Green. So yeah, as it turns out, assuming that it's true, which even then wouldn't really make a lot of sense, and I'll explain in just a second, assuming it's true that 1 in 10 men will be perpetrators of sexual assault, the next question would have to be, where? 1 in 10 men, where will be perpetrators? Because if you're talking about the whole of America, I guess that would be a lot of sexual assault, but that's not what you said. If you're talking about Florida, that'd be interesting to know. Texas? I don't know, is it a city? Pensacola? I don't know, New York? Hollywood? Who knows? It just says 1 in 10. 1 in 10 men where? Bearing in mind, the only way you could ever pull a statistic is with the sample size of any given population, which means it can't accurately reflect what's actually happening. So yeah, I'm just saying, it would be nice to know where 1 in 10 men are committing sexual assault, not rape, which is a very important distinction.
But men who are athletes are slightly more likely to be perpetrators than male non-athletes.
I have also noticed the same phenomena in male athletes to be falsely accused of rape. If you think of Brian Banks, just off the top of my head, and Duke Lacrosse boys as well, it also happened to them. I mean, I could probably name some more, but we'd be here all day, so continue. I'm just saying, it's interesting that there's the two phenomena that surrounding these athletes. Some are more likely to rape, and they're also more likely to be falsely accused. How does that work? It's confusing. Continue.
In 1995, researchers found that college athletes committed 19% of campus sexual assaults, even though they're only 3% of the male population.
Yeah, but where? Yeah, I know. She does have like the links in the description box below for her sources. I'll probably look into it, and then I'll come back and tell you where that happens to be the case. And even then, now that I think about it, even though this was taken back in 1995, that was a little over 20 years ago. You don't think that's a little maybe it is a little outdated, or maybe not. Maybe it's entirely accurate, but bearing in mind the statistic you just showed us, Laci, is 20 years old. I know because I'm 20, so yeah.
Earlier this year, a study found that 54% of college athletes anonymously admit to sexual coercion versus 38% for non-athletes.
So now I'm going to read her source, or at least the abstract of her source, just to give us some more context into that percentage. It goes, prior research shows that male intercollegiate athletes are at risk for perpetrating sexual violence. Whether this risk extends to male recreational athletes has not been explored. This study assessed associations between attitudes towards women, rape myth acceptance, and prevalence of sexual coercion among 379 male undergraduate, recreational, and intercollegiate athletes and non-athletes. Huh. That's quite the sample size there. Our analyses showed significant difference between the responses of athletes and non-athletes for all dependent variables in intercollegiate and recreational athletes on all attitudes towards women and the prevalence of sexual coercion. Controlling for rape myth acceptance and traditional gender role attitudes eliminated differences between athletes and non-athletes and prevalence of sexual coercion. So that's the abstract. And you know, again, we're not working with the rather huge sample size, and I don't even know again where that sample size is even pulled from. I don't think it really matters all that much. I think the point we still have to take into consideration, even if we take 54% of that, which roughly translates to around 204, I already did the calculation before I recorded this clip, you know, we're still dealing with a huge or a very small amount of men who think sexual coercion is okay, and then we'll have to ask a very important question: what exactly do they mean by sexual coercion? You know, I mean, some feminists would think, or some researchers would think, that simply asking a woman a couple of times to have sex with you is sexual coercion. And I find it interesting, again, that, you know, again, this study was done for males, and you can't see how many women sexually coerce men into having sex with them, you know, for a little bit of that balance. Nope. Can't have that. Or maybe they do, and Laci just didn't show it, and I'll have to do some independent research. But as far as I see it, I mean, we're still only dealing with the minority of men, which is a consistent theme that even Laci herself has proven to us. Oh, by the way, you can keep going, Laci.
When it came to use of force, like hitting, holding down, using a weapon, 10% of athletes perpetrated, while only 1% of non-athletes did. It's a pretty horrific picture, no matter how you paint it, because one, these are high numbers across the board, and
perhaps high in the sense that they happen, perhaps, but I mean, 10 is less than 90, and 1 is less than, well, 99, and even then, you know, we're still dealing with the fact that you're consistently showing us that a vast amount of athletes are participating in this behavior. Most of them aren't doing it. So even then, even if you're saying that there are more rapes that happen with athletes, or alleged rapes, or even if they are fully convicted, let's just make the assumption that they are, there's actually only real statement that ever really needs to be said and to completely respond to this video, Laci, and that statement is, correlation does not equal causation. I mean, well, I guess this is still the opening part of your video, but you're gonna have to pull some really fucking good logical arguments and research to really convince me that sports have anything to do with rape, and it's not rapists that choose to play sports, because, well, that's completely fucking different. I mean, wholly different. To explain how different that is, saying that the sport has an influence on whether or not someone is going to rape shows that the sport itself would have to have something to do with that, versus if someone was already inclined to rape, shows that they like playing sports. And a rapist liking playing sports doesn't mean that all athletes or athletes in general are more likely to rape. It just means that that particular rapist was an athlete. I'm just saying. Then continue.
Two, the real numbers are likely even higher because these studies are based on self-reports.
You honestly expect me to believe that rapists would self-report that they are horrible, shitty I mean, maybe they are. Maybe they're just that psychopathic. Who knows?
And look, it's tricky. We have to be careful not to pretend like sexual assault is exclusively a sports problem. It's not by a long shot. But what could explain the increased risk of sexual violence that we're seeing amongst athletes? Ken Dryden, an NHL Hall of Fame goalie, argues, quote, "It's really a sense of power that comes from specialness. Anyone who finds himself at the center of the world he's in has a sense of impunity," unquote. So basically, athletes are put on a pedestal, and that sense of power feeds sexual entitlement.
Now, Laci, it's entirely possible that you're speaking in generalities because it's easier to speak in generalities, which is true. It is easier to speak in generalities. Except in this case, based on the information that you've shown us, it would actually be vastly incorrect to speak in generalities on the case that athletes, one, feel this way in particular. I mean, you just showed some one-off quote of some guy just saying it. I mean, who knows that's actually the case? I mean, of course, man. I mean, they've got regular fucking frat boys who feel that way. Just regular people. Honestly, to say this just specifically hits on athletes, or athletes feel this way. They feel entitled to sex, even though, I mean, they had to work pretty hard to obtain it, being that they're the athlete and the woman wants what he may be able to provide in the future. I mean, that's not entitlement if you feel like you have to do something to obtain sex from a woman. I'm just saying. Even what you've just shown me, you know, based on what you've said earlier in your video, it doesn't make any sense to generalize that most athletes even feel this way. I mean, you don't even have a statistic to show me that most athletes feel this particular way, for one. And for two, you're just generalizing a bunch of people you don't even know and saying that they're more likely to rape, when you've shown consistently that it's the minority of men who are athletes are going to rape. And the minority, because, I mean, we still have any, this is just the assumption that these guys are convicted rapists, not even that they've been accused of doing it.
Which is made worse by the fact that athletes are often protected from punishment.
You know, honestly, I would like to see an example of an athlete being protected from this type of situation. No, honestly, I would, because I'm not entirely sure what Laci's talking about. I mean, I've seen athletes get the fucking book thrown at them. I mean, there's this one athlete who went to FSU, who I think he said like "fuck her right in the pussy," or he just said something funny, something childish and immature, and he got the book thrown at him. He had to sit out like 2 or 3 fucking games because he was being a class clown. I mean, they did that to this kid who just said something in the middle of class. You really think that a lot of people are going to run to the defense of rapists? Honestly, Laci? Because, I mean, what I've been shown consistently, and have shown even the viewer consistently, is no, people do not run to the defense of rapists. I mean, I would love an example here so I can understand what exactly you're talking about. But, I mean, again, you're talking about Brian Banks and Duke Lacrosse boys. We've shown that the book was thrown at them. Hell, we can even talk about Brock Turner briefly for a second here, which is actually a pretty interesting case that happened with Brock Turner. Because I saw on Facebook, Brock Turner got fucking lambasted everywhere on the internet and accused of being a rapist. But when I watched this one video by Janet Bloomfield, I'll put a link in the description box below. As it turns out, which kind of blew my mind, Brock Turner actually wasn't even a rapist. He wasn't convicted for rape. He was convicted for sexual assault with intent to rape, as in he was fingering an unconscious girl and then 2 Swedish boys found him. That's what happened with Brock Turner, a summation of what was going on. But, I mean, the more information you pile into that scenario, and the fact that he was drunk, and as it turned out, the girl he was trying to have sex with, well, she was drunk too. And then when you pile on the fact that him and the girl, like, they left the party together, that's right, like the nigga didn't pick up, this is some shit that got me about what happened with Brock Turner, right? Like, people continuously said that he was raping an unconscious girl behind the dumpster. Now, that confused the shit out of me, because I was wondering, how did this guy get the girl from point A to point B? That's what got me. So as it turns out, what actually happened was he and the girl, they left at the same time, together. And that's what happened. There's 2 drunk people having sex behind a dumpster. Because, you know, drunk people, they don't think complexly. They're not sitting here thinking, let's go get a fucking hotel. You know what I mean? Let's go get an Uber. They're not thinking that, alright? So that's what happened. And he got lambasted as a rapist. He was even still convicted. I think he got 2 months. Which a lot of people were upset. They thought he should have, you know, gotten more. But my feelings are mixed on that. I meant to make a video about it. Never got around to it. But I go on to that whole digression in order to say that even when athletes are punished. I mean, even when we've seen that the athlete didn't actually rape someone, and he was still punished. And let's not forget the fact that he got fucking wrecked on social media and wrecked in the wider society. It's not like people are gonna like and accept this guy anymore. So I mean, honestly, I've seen more examples of athletes being lambasted and being crushed by the justice system, falsely accused no less, than I have ever seen any person who has shown without a shadow of a doubt that they were raped, and then the person was like, yeah, not guilty. I've never seen that. Maybe Laci has an example. She's not showing us, but I've seen the opposite more times than I can count. So who knows? Honestly, I'm erring on the side that this is some old bullshit.
We've seen it over and over again. Perpetrators protected by coaches, by law enforcement, by schools. Why? Bad priorities, obviously. Like, say, money, instead of people's basic human rights and dignity. Athletes are often the public face of a school, so an athlete raping someone is damaging to the school's reputation, which affects their bottom lines.
No. First of all, people don't go to college solely for sports. In fact, I mean, even the population of athletes, of actual, like really fucking high athletes who get into college is a vast minority of people who actually go to college, I mean, to drink, have fun, and have parties. No, but seriously, I mean, the real purpose of going to college is to get a degree or some type of education. And the secondary, or at least what should be secondary, is to have some freedom and a bit of irresponsibility before you enter the real world. Right? So even if there is a rapist, you know, at a college, it doesn't diminish the actual quality of the degree program. You know, even though Brock Turner was a convicted sexual assault doer, because he's not a rapist, it doesn't mean that the quality of the school Stanford goes down because one person did something wrong. I mean, anyone with any degree of intelligence or common sense would never worry about that because they can just avoid the people who's raping. You can do that. You have a functioning cognitive system. And again, I hardly have ever seen colleges actually defend convicted rapists. I've seen them defend people who haven't been proven to be rapists because that's kind of what you do when you have this thing called due process. But I've never seen that. I mean, Laci is talking under the assumption that I'm just supposed to automatically understand what she means here. But I don't. Because I've never seen it. I've seen the opposite happen plenty of times, though. But I've never seen what she's described happen. Maybe I'm just stupid, who knows?
Sports bring in a lot of cash to a school, and they stand to lose thousands, if not millions of dollars if an athlete rapes someone.
Yeah, no they don't. Even if one athlete did something wrong, it's not going to diminish the entire population of thousands of students that go there. That's ridiculous. I mean, I know people are prejudiced, but they're not that fucking prejudiced. I mean, not when their primary objective is getting education. And even then, this is all just conjecture. I mean, there's no way you can come to this conclusion, Laci. I mean, there's no way you know any of this. I mean, at this point, you're just kind of talking. And you're supposed to be convincing me that there's a correlation between athletes and rape. And what I'm mostly seeing is there's a correlation between athletes hurting women's feelings and athletes being falsely accused. Because I know back in college, that happened a lot. Lots of women had sex with athletes. And it turns out the athletes didn't want to do much of anything with them for quite some time. And that hurt the girl's feelings. I mean, it's kind of life now, but it happened a lot, and I'm just saying, you know, who knows? I'm just saying.
But according to capitalism, it doesn't really matter how shitty people are, as long as you're making money.
Is that projection, Laci? Is that projection? I'm just asking, I'm just wondering. Bearing in mind, this entire video, you still haven't really shown us a strong correlation. I mean, you haven't even shown us a strong correlation between athletes and rape. You've just shown that there's slightly more athletes who, I guess, again, under the assumption of being convicted of rape. I mean, if they're just accused of rape, then we've really got no case here. So let's just assume that these athletes are convicted of rape. You've still only shown us that it's a minority. You've only shown us that it's a small spike between the normal population of men and the athletes. But there's still vastly more men who are not raping, which you put as the premise of your video. It's still not even a strong enough correlation between sports and sports and rape anyway, or athletes and rape. Even if there was a strong correlation between the two, correlation still doesn't equal causation.
Another fun side effect, perpetrators who get away with it are emboldened to do it again. After all, protecting athletes lets them and everyone else know that the rules don't really apply to them.
So then I have to ask, what exactly does the opposite prove? What does being falsely accused of rape, going to jail for 5 years, or being convicted of sexual assault and then being called a rapist when you're not, what does that prove? I'm a little confused here because I see the opposite more often. I just want to know, is it showing that the rules do apply to people who haven't done something wrong? Because that's what I'm seeing here.
There's also something to be said about the nature of sports. Aggression, even violence, are supported.
Laci, do you even watch most sports? In fact, in most sports, you'll see that violence or super aggressive violence is actually punished. Especially in basketball. I mean, hell, even when I played lacrosse, I mean, there are only so many ways you could correctly check someone without being put in the penalty box. It's like, no. It's like, yeah, you're supposed to be aggressive, but one of the highlights of most team-based sports is, well, the teamwork, not the violence and not the aggression. And even then, even if you take sports like football, I mean, hardly is the violence the most encouraged factor of football. More it is everyone doing their job correctly and working together. I mean, yeah, people get tackled, but I mean, it's not like they're being brutish and violent or anything like that. I mean, like, seriously, do you watch sports? I mean, look at soccer. Like, in soccer, I mean, people, like, aggressively, like, nudge each other to get the ball, but, you know, if you fucking body check the shit out of someone and they go flying across the field, yeah, you're getting into the penalty box. I mean, there's only so much violence that's even accepted in sports, Laci, so, again, it's like you don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, first time for everything, right?
A sign of strength, a sign of pride, and a centerpiece of sports culture and masculinity.
Seems more it is teamwork, cooperation, strength of mind, perseverance, perhaps, you know? Or maybe, now just maybe, the truth of the matter is people just enjoy watching individuals do something well. It's not the power and aggression, the negative connotation you're given to sports. Maybe people like watching individuals work together to get to a better goal or get to a better place, you know? I mean, unless you're talking about, say, rugby or mixed martial arts, and even then, when it comes to mixed martial arts, again, you still have the consistent theme of watching people do something well, not even so much the violence aspect of it all, because most people aren't super big fans of violence. I'm just saying, Laci, it's almost like you don't know what you're talking about. Just throwing words at the screen. But no, Laci, that's not why sports are so amazing and popular to people, especially not for men.
Some athletes, those values held on the field are bleeding into real life. Combine that with the mentality that women are prizes and eye candy, not full people, and we've got a problem.
Oh, you've got an assumption. You've got a mighty big assumption. And this isn't here to say that there aren't any sleazy athletes that exist in the world who don't really care much about the well-being of the women that they're having sex with. Because they do exist, and that's true, that you're right. But to assume that those men are rapists, or to assume that they're more likely to be rapists in a group of athletes is a stretch of the imagination. I mean, and even then, I mean, if you're really that deathly afraid of being raped by an athlete, you do know you can just not have sex with them, right? As it turns out, no, athletes are pretty attractive to women for a multitude of reasons. And as it turns out, they end up hurting lots of women's feelings. Perhaps you can catch my train of thought here, because I see more men being falsely accused of rape than men being convicted of it. At least athletes. Just saying.
Which is why we gotta talk about this. Authority figures who work in athletics can play an especially positive role in modeling positive masculinity.
Laci, you may as well have just said coaches can breathe air to help their athletes form a more better positive form of masculinity. Like, Laci, do you talk to coaches? Have you played on a sports team? Coaches already do that. At least good coaches do. So maybe you are, tossing it out to the wind to the bad, horrible coaches who just force the people to exercise and work out as hard as they can. But from every coach I've ever worked with and ever seen, yeah, they build a pretty strong bond with the athletes and try their damnedest to help them be good people. But at the end of the day, they still recognize that an adult is still a fucking adult. I'm just saying, Laci, again, it's almost like you're just throwing words out there.
Masculinity where strength is used for helping others, not for hurting.
Laci, have you ever cracked open a fucking comic book? I mean, are you serious? Laci, one of the most defining features of any and every fucking superhero is the fact that they use all of their awesome powers to help people, not hurt them. That's what makes people villains. consistently in Western media. That is if there is one thing that I could name from all superheroes that is consistently, the fucking Japanese anime and manga too, if there's one plot line, one thread that I could call that is consistent throughout all of these mediums, is the hero uses his power for the sake of other people. The fuck out of here, Laci. Just get the fuck out of here.
Values should be clear, with no tolerance for predatory behavior. And if you're an athlete, it's really important to be an advocate. Speaking up can feel awkward and uncomfortable, especially
if you and your friends have like never raped anyone and have never even conceived of the idea. Yeah, it can be really awkward.
First, but ultimately, you're making your community safer. If you want to join the movement, your campus's sexual assault prevention groups would love to have you, and there are ways to get involved that will accommodate a busy schedule. We need advocates in athletics, in Greek, in every other community to make campus a safe place to learn. Thanks for joining me, everyone. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
You know, honestly, even to this day, I'm still not entirely sure what exactly is problematic with just telling women to be more proactive and avoiding being raped. I mean, you would think that people who are deathly afraid of being raped would try to not be raped, in the same sense that I try to find ways so I'm not robbed. I mean, I'm not deathly afraid of being robbed. I'm just only mildly afraid of being robbed, and even I still take precautions for it. I'm just saying. And here's the thing, I mean, I never tell women to try to figure out ways to not get raped because I secretly want them to get raped. In all actuality, if I really want them to get raped, the very last thing that I would do is tell them that it's victim blaming to try to avoid being raped. I mean, if anything, I would try to encourage them to get drunk more often and tell them that it's their right to constantly have sex with a bunch of people they don't know and don't like. If that is, if I wanted them to get raped. More to the point of Laci's video though, because I'm digressing. Yeah, there's not a strong enough correlation. And even if there was, you could still say correlation does not equal causation. To say that sports influences rapists, or that athletes are more prone or more likely to rape. I'm still not entirely sure what she even meant when she said sexual coercion. And this, my friends, is a sparkling, shining example of why I don't like Laci Green. I mean, she consistently shows us that this is a minority of men, and yet she still tries to plaster this as if this is the responsibility of all athletes, like they've done something wrong. In fact, this is a constant threat line I've seen with feminists. One man does something wrong and horrible, and it's indicative of all men, so all men need to do something to fix it. Nary should any woman take any responsibility for herself and try to avoid these narrow situations. No, the whole of the world should change and bend to her whim to make things better and easier for her. Instead of her, like, avoiding toxic people who don't like her and don't actually care about her. No, these men who haven't done something wrong should change, even though they haven't done anything wrong. So, with that being said, man, I certainly hope you guys enjoyed today's video. And if you did, man, go ahead and click the like button. Yeah, shoot, go ahead and click that subscribe button. Comment in the comment box below. And as always, you guys have yourselves a great day, and I'll see you cool cats soon. Adios.